Obviously, to me, the best thing about Saturday was probably pregame in the sense that I think our entire student section was there a good hour and a half early, and that was really, really impressive. I mean, I know that in general the crowd was great, but to see the ruckus there, to see them there even for warm-ups, I mean, it puts a little life into the stadium. Obviously, we didn't start off exactly the way we expected to or really wanted to. I think the kind of the monotonous way that kind of started the game with a 14-play drive, it really kind of slowed us all down, and in some ways maybe zapped even a little bit of the energy out. So give them a lot of credit for what they did, making first downs, controlling the clock, especially in that first half. I don't think any of us got into any type of groove, and it does make it difficult. Went at halftime, made a few minor adjustments, but more, I think the adjustments were more personally with just a sense of urgency. The first half was a very slow, methodical, game, and I think the sense of urgency coming out the second half and making first downs and getting the momentum back offensively really, really kind of changed the complete complexion of the game. Not that you're sitting there worried, but you never know how guys are going to react and respond. And so we grew up and we got to experience a little something different, and now we got to move on. I think we have been quite a while since we've gone on the road. I mean, last year I think really one road game, maybe two road games, I can't even remember. Not a single game where there was any type of hostile crowd or any type of environment that you had to handle being on the road. And the great thing about college football now is it's really back, and you have the environment, you have the crowds, and for us to go to play a really, really, really good Indiana team that obviously we've been talking about since the summer, and then throw the road change up in a lot of things that we're doing, and then the crowd. It's something we haven't experienced in a year and a half or 2 years. So how we will handle that will be a big deal. So a challenge, a great challenge ahead of us in many different ways.
Luke, there's an elephant in the room. Can I ask that you address it?
Indiana yet.
I know. I just want to get it out the way. I just want to get out the way.
I mean, look, I don't talk to anybody. I barely talk to my own family during the season, and so I wouldn't ever talk about it, nor would I even answer a phone call or anything like that. So I know nothing, nor does it make me have any interest. So it's not a big deal. It's nothing but distractions if people allow it to be. And for us, it can't be, But I also want to say that this is the greatest thing that can happen for us, and because it is a reflection on what these guys have done on the football field. So there are some great things about it. That's what's being talked about. It has nothing to do with me. It has to do with what Desmond Ritter and Najee Sanders and Ahmad Gardner and those guys have done to put our program in a light. And I hope that there's a lot of those calls and things like that at the end of the year. Because at the end of the year, when you're playing really good ball, those things are going to happen. And we pride ourselves on people calling at the end of the year, whether it's for me or for your coordinators or those juniors that they want to come out for the draft because they're playing really, really good football. So it's a compliment to all if somebody is bringing anything like that up, because I think that's about all you really need to talk about. I mean, hey, plenty of our young juniors that have a future in football are getting a lot of calls as well, and it can't distract them either.
You're used to hearing this stuff in November and December. Have you ever heard it in mid-September?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't normally listen until, like I said, even January, where you start to read some things. But it's a crazy world and crazy business, and I think it does nothing more than show a lot of us that stability is great in this business, and when you can create some stability in the things that are around you, grass is not always greener, and if not anything, it does, if you're going to spend any time thinking about it, it does make you realize what great fortunes you have to be building something and have some stability, not just for you as a person and you as a family guy, but you as a program and the kids in your program.
For Indiana, they played a couple of games, obviously this year, but how much do you balance looking at last year, especially with the quarterback before an injury and now? How do you balance that?
I mean, we do, definitely. I mean, obviously we did a lot of work over the summer and breaking them down and really studying them. Had a phenomenal year last year, had a good year the year before as well. And to me, it's a program that is continuing to build. I mean, when I say a program, programs are guys that, like we talk about, have some consistency. And what he's done there, Tom's done there, is really built some consistency year in and year out over the past at least 3 years. So yes, there's a lot that we've studied from the summer, not just offensively and defensively, but special teams wise as well. And whether Penix was there and hurt. When you've got a program, you don't change everything just because one guy goes down. And that's what I think more than anything that I've been able to notice is things don't change. They lost a defensive coordinator, they got a new defensive coordinator. Things aren't completely different. That shows you that it's a program that has their principles in place, and whoever's going to come in there is going to fall in line with doing things the way they want them done.
For good reason. There's a lot of talk about Penix and Freifogel, but it seems like their identity is defense, even though that's not really what's talked about most with them.
Who talks about defense, right? I mean, it's this world. I mean, we want to see the ball in the end zone. We want to see the ball in the air. We want the cheer. We want the crowd. We want the band. I mean, no. I think that obviously that's where they've kind of established who they are, and in a lot of ways, I think it's pretty similar to what we've done. And as you continue to grow, things continue to develop, and they have been very, very good defensively in the last few years. Very aggressive and different at times, which I think is unique. I think that's where they've kind of found their little niche, and to say, okay, we're going to have to do some things different. I mean, I think from year 1 to year 2 here, and as we've progressed defensively in particular, we've had to be different than I ever was before. And I think you just got to find ways based on what you got and what you need to create some of those havoc. So they've done a phenomenal job. They've continued to grow, and like I said, it hasn't changed a lot just because of coordinators.
Okay, let's talk offense.
I figured.
Tyler Scott, do you expect now, like, the cat's out of the bag in terms of how teams are going to?
Yes, the cat's out of the bag. Tyler, we playing some defense. It's been in my history to see that done and work really well. So you might see it this week, maybe next. Yes, the cat will be out of the bag at some point in time. We're just figuring out when and how we're going to use him, whether it's just the red zone or if we give him a bigger package.
The next 2 weeks, or 3 weeks with the bye week in between, are pretty big games. What do you think this team has learned playing in big games just the last couple of years, whether it be Georgia, UCF? I mean, they played.
No, we'll find out what they've learned. I mean, the things that we continue to reiterate and pound into them, it's especially going on the road. I think that you find out a lot more about each other, and when you go on the road, there's a lot of things you got to be able to do, and it starts with special teams. Everybody talks about offense and defense, but the reality is the thing that ties everybody together is the special teams. Incredible momentum changes in the battle of the field position is done in the special teams, and that has given us a great opportunity when we've been on the road. They might not have stood out and made a ton of plays everybody talks about because they don't make highlights on SportsCenter. But if you really look at the big road wins we've had, and even when we've played really well in the big games, special teams has been a huge factor. So I'm not sure we've had to rely on that yet. Obviously, in the beginning of this year, we've had the good fortunes of being at home and maybe not having to rely on them to make as much energy and as many plays as maybe the crowd and the things have done for us. But no, going on the road, it's going to be different. It's going to be a lot of body blows, and we've got to find ways on special teams to create some things.
With all this talk about Indiana Notre Dame, those first couple games, do coaches hold anything back? Do you hold anything back? Offensively, defensively, game plan-wise, do you go vanilla, or is that a misconception?
No, you got to be real careful. I mean, there's a balance between what you maybe don't do and what you have planned, as opposed to what you can get good at. So I think there is a balance, and then you can hurt yourself. You hold things back, and all of a sudden you look like we did maybe in the first half. And it's not because you would have held anything back. Sometimes, in my eyes, last week I asked them to put more in, just to kind of keep our guys motivated, to keep them focused on what they were doing, challenge them a little bit more mentally. Maybe that wasn't the best thing. But no, I don't think that there's a whole lot that's held back. Each and every week you continue to grow and you want to have new wrinkles. But I think we are who we are, and we've done a pretty good job of it, and we got to continue to grow.
You talked last week about Jerome Ford not quite being the top back yet. Were the 18 touches and 3 touchdowns this week enough to finally put him there
I
on
don't
the
know if I
top
said he
line?
wasn't the top back. I think I said I wasn't sure if he was able to handle it 18 times just yet, because he only carried it 12 in the first game. And I held him out of the special teams, or we kept him off of special teams because I told him you haven't shown us that you can carry it 18 times and take care of the ball. And so he asked me, he said, I carried it 18 times. Yeah, I know, and you put it on the ground once. So we're going to see if you can actually get to 20 before we stick you into the special teams mix, because he's really kind of itching to find a role there. But no, he's done a really good job. Hindsight, I wish we could get him started a little bit sooner. I know the second half he kind of really, for me, not saying took over the game, but he really was what really kind of changed the momentum of it when he has the ability to start moving the ball. Because when we can run it, I think it's going to open up a lot of other opportunities for Dez in the passing game. But no, he's done a phenomenal job. He's our back, and us still trying to figure out between Charles and the rest of the guys and Ryan and Ethan where the other opportunities are for those guys and what are they best suited for.
Jerome, his physical gifts are pretty obvious. What else does he do that makes him such a good running back?
You know what? And I'm not saying he's developed the knack to play without the football in his hand too. Maybe you haven't seen it quite as much just this year, just yet, but I saw it a lot in camp. He didn't run the ball a ton, but to see him play without the football, meaning, down the field, meaning even if Dez pulls the ball, him blocking, he's going to be a threat in the passing game. I mean, he was a slot receiver a lot of his high school career, having two tailbacks in high school. So he's very, very adept to not just say routes, but catching the football, catching it in a crowd, and making contested catches. He's going to give us a lot of options as we continue to move throughout the year.
I think he played some rush end in high school too, if you're interested.
I'm not there just yet. We're going on take one at a time, and right now it's just Tyler, and we'll see as we continue to move forward.
Ethan on notice.
He's always been on notice.
Jerome's pretty relaxed and chill anytime we talk to him. Is he like that on the field too?
I think he was like that from the day he walked in the door, and we've kind of pushed him to not be quite as chill and relaxed. I think that's not what we say, maybe the nature of the environment around here, but it's nice to have some of those guys that that are different. And by nature, he is a little bit more of a chill and relaxed guy, but that doesn't, you can't take that, when he first got here, I thought that was a lack of intensity, when in reality, I think it's just the nature of who he is. And it's not that he's not focused, it's not that he's not intense about what he's doing, and it's not that he's not into it. He just has a calmer nature than maybe myself, I would say.
You mentioned the hostile crowd, the first one you will have faced in a very long time. Is there anything you have to do differently this week, whether it's focusing on the center quarterback exchange or pumping some crowd noise into it? What is
We
there
always
like
do. I mean, if you haven't been in practice, it's usually pretty loud, and it's a little harder to coach at times because of the music. But I think offensively, we just haven't been in that situation in a long while. That we're making checks and things like that, and even the cadence. I don't know exactly how bad it can be, but we know that it's going to be somewhat of an effect, and it's something we haven't seen in a year and a half. So things you've always got to prepare yourself for.
Coming from the Big Ten East, Mike Tressel's been familiar with Tom Allen's version of Indiana every year. Is that something you've leaned on?
Yeah, I mean, he's played them the last few years, so I mean, he's got a better idea of face to face what they've done and how they've done it. But as much study as you have a chance to do with the film that you have nowadays, I mean, I'd be upset if we didn't have as much of a grasp on Indiana, knowing that this was a game that was down the road, and all the time we've had in the off season to really do a really, really good job of studying these guys. But it's nice to have that firsthand experience.
Obviously expect them to try to make a statement after what happened in their season opener.
Yeah, I think it's always difficult. I think they're far enough along that whether they're worried about making a statement, I think that when you've got a program that's growing, it's always about continuing to play, and that to me is what I see different from where they maybe have been in the past. Is okay, it was a tough fought game. Iowa's a really good football team, and it's a tough one to start off with in league. But I'm sure that whether it's trying to make a statement or not, it's getting them back in a position that it's a long season, and they've got a really tough road in that Big Ten East.
We've talked about the big games and the hostile crowd. How does it change having that target on your back of being a top 10 team and going on the road? How does that change things?
Well, I think our guys are seeing it and recognizing it, and what that means sometimes is people are going to play you a little different. And I don't mean it's like all of a sudden, yes, that they're going to be excited to play because of a ranking and what you've been able to do. But I think that just recognition of, you might get some things a little bit different. You know, we said that in week 1 with Miami because it's always a rivalry game. You're going to get more than what you see on film. But I think even last week, I think they did a really good job at saying, okay, what is our philosophy? How are we going to, you know, attack these guys? And not that it's completely different, but yeah, we're going to do some different things, knowing that, you know, A, we got to control the football on offense, because if we give it to them, their offense is really, really powerful. And, you know, so things that we maybe, not new plays and different things, but just a different way of going about it in order to try to control the game or limit the game. I think those are things that we aren't maybe as accustomed to, that if we keep growing, that we'll have to make sure we can adapt and handle it.
Facing some adversity last week, does that help you prepare for this Indiana game?
There's no doubt. I mean, every year, you, as a coach, you worry until you've kind of had some of those adverse situations, because every year is different, and you just don't know how those guys are going to work and mesh and gel together. I said it after the game. That was, to me, the best thing about the day, is we took some punches, and we had some adversity, and we had to kind of react and respond. And for the first time, as a team, I don't mean the first time. Desmond Ritter's done it. Ajay Sanders has done it. Kobe Bryant, they've all done it, but they haven't done it with this group of guys. And I think that's always a unique thing. And that's the difficult thing about college football, is you don't have as much time to grow up as you might have in, you know, basketball. You're playing a lot more games, and you can have some of those, you know, really, really tough ones that you have to learn from, or even in pro football, where, you know, it's all about making the playoffs. You got to be able to grow up in those situations, but you got to be able to find a way to win and escape.
Murray State was methodical, and they huddled, and they took their time in their offensive attack, and they had relative success. Do you think because of that, you'll see more of that with the season going forward?
I think that was their plan. I mean, I don't know that you're going to go into the Indiana game and them thinking that they're mismatched or outmatched, or think that they got to slow the game down. They believe they're better, and I think they're going to go about doing what they do. If that's a little adjustments, yeah, but I don't think that, you know, you're going to get something completely different from them. They believe in who they are. They've established who they are. I think they're going to be aggressive in attack.
Seems like opposing offenses, extra blockers, quick passes are making sure that you guys don't get to the quarterback. Are you noticing that?
Well, it can be frustrating. I don't know after 2, but there is a unique, you know, ability, or at least we've seen the first couple of games, the ball getting out really quick. And maybe that has to do with some of the coverage, maybe that has to do with some of the pressure, maybe that has to do with some of the guys. You know, there's a stat for everything, and I think right now, you know, we're a team that's, you know, the ball is coming out faster against us than anybody else. So whether you look at that as a positive to say, okay, hey, we're applying some pressure and the ball's coming out in rhythm, and that's what we got to be able to do, or do you say, okay, this is something that's in our scheme that we, you know, got to do a better job against, because you know, those are the free access and freer throws. Either way, you just got to recognize it and then be able to adapt and adjust, because it can be frustrating, because we all, like you guys, are all looking at stats and like stats. And sometimes when you get in some of those situations, the stats that pop out at everybody aren't the most impressive ones, but the stats that really matter, you know, those are the things we got to make sure we stay focused on.
Do you feel like even though the sacks aren't there, you're getting some of the type of pressure you need?
I think we've affected the quarterback well. You know, for several years, and I got it from my buddy Vrabel, that, you know, I don't know if it was Bill Belichick or not, but sometimes he would say that sacks are the most overrated stat in football. And it's hard for some to say, because they get paid really well to make those sacks and things like that. But I think when not done the right way, I think when, for the ability to close the pocket, the ability to tip balls, the ability to put pressure on the cue, those things are every bit as effective sometimes as sacks. Sacks look prettier, and you know, we remind ourselves, but we all get a little bit, you know, we want to win, and not just win the game. Obviously, as you start to get a little bit greedy, you want to win in all those other categories too, but you got to be smart. You got to understand that you still have to be able to take what's given to you.
We've talked about teams maybe throwing away from Sauce this week. You've gone up against a really good receiver. Have you talked to him about difference? I'm guessing he's probably excited about that matchup.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great opportunity for him. I think that, like I said, I don't think Indiana's going to shy away. I mean, I think that, you know, what they've done and what they did last year, throwing for 491 yards and on Ohio State, and, gonna believe in who they've got and what they do, and they're not gonna change. They're gonna take their shots, and Freifeld's gonna, you know, be into the boundary a lot, and it's gonna be a great matchup. And you know, I mean, I think there's no better way. I mean, you're not gonna win every single one, and that's sometimes the most difficult thing for a corner that doesn't get challenged that often is, can you handle some of those other situations? A cop ball, a flag, whatever it is, you know, you just got to be able to handle the challenges that are thrown your way, and sometimes they come few and far between, at least in the first couple games, but they're gonna come, and they're gonna come this week for sure.
The Peach Bowl had limited attendance. You don't really have any like league games that are drivable. Are you just kind of curious, or are the guys curious to see what that environment looks like with a road traveling crowd?
Yeah, I'm curious what that will, and I know I didn't really think about it till you just brought it up, because you know, you kind of go into that little shell and mentality that when you go on the road, this is all you got, you know. But it will be really nice to know we've got a little bit more that's following and with us as well, and you know, that they can be a little bit of a factor there as well. You know, I mean, we got to be the number one factor, but it would be nice to have them as the number two factor. That's for sure.
So,
I don't know if it means anything, but the Indiana-Cincinnati game was Indiana's first game to sell out ahead of Ohio State and Michigan State. So that kind of feeds what you just said there.
And it could have something to do with proximity. Hopefully it's a lot of, you know, our people as well as that they've circled it too. You know, it's we've gone head to head a little bit more than people will know and recognize it, but in recruiting side of things as well. And I think there's kind of creates some of those natural little rivalries just because you are in that proximity in a lot of different phases, not just playing, but in recruiting and things like that. But it'll be an exciting one.
we saw Jordan Jones in a boot on Saturday. Do you have an injury update on it?
You did?
Yeah.
Pretty observant.
Appreciate it.
I don't have any updates. It's only Tuesday, and we haven't started practice yet. Did I say that last week?
You did.
You
I
did.
say
It
that
was
last
about right.
Exactly.
That's a
week?
different
I think I might have said.
Word for word. Fro.
That's why it's nice to do this on a Tuesday.
Can we switch to Wednesday?
Thursday?
Good?
Anything else?